The order to erase an entire guild was already given, already moving. The Undertow was on the water ahead of her, and a guild that had stood for 9 years would be gone by morning, and Alana could not stop turning the order over, which was how she knew something about it was wrong. She did not turn orders over. That was the whole point of her. The woman who held the verdant wake did not waver and did not second-guess, and she certainly did not ride a common ferry through the rain to watch a routine severance with her own eyes. She had done that twice in 10 years. This was the third, and she still could not name the thing that had put her on the boat. So she sat in the plain coat she wore everywhere, because power keeps best when nobody is looking at it, and watched the port of Tarnside come up grey out of the wet dark, and worried at the wrong note like a tongue at a broken tooth. A guild eats the poor. That was the report. 9 years an honest affiliate, no marks against them, and then, 3 weeks ago, the people who came off the crossing with nothing began to be bled. That was Rule 2. No crimes against those in need. And Rule 2 did not have a hearing or a warning or a second conversation. It had the Undertow, and the Undertow was already in the water. People don't turn that fast, Alana thought, watching the warm-lit window of a dockside kitchen slide past at the waterline, her kitchen, one of hundreds, where anyone hungry could eat and nobody asked them why. She had built those. She was prouder of them than of anything the wake moved in the dark. A guild that keeps the rules for 9 years does not wake one morning and start eating the very people that rule was written to protect. Something made them, and the report did not say what. That was the wrong note. That was why she had come. Before she ended 9 years tonight, she was going to stand in that quarter and see it with her own eyes. Nobody on the ferry knew her. That was the point. They saw a woman in her 40s with grey starting at her temples and a tiredness in her face that could have belonged to any of them, and they looked away, and that was exactly the amount of attention Alana wanted in the world, which was almost none. The warden met her at the dock, under a dead lamp, the way the Undertow met her everywhere, quietly, with no sign passing between them that a watcher could read. "You didn't have to come," the warden said. He was a spare, still man whose past Alana knew and never spoke of, and he ran her enforcement the way a surgeon runs a blade. "It's confirmed. It's clean. We don't need you for a Rule 2. "Tell me again," Alana said, "all of it, as if I haven't read it." "The Tarnside Guild," the warden said. "Affiliate for 9 years, no marks against them. 3 weeks ago the reports changed. They've been bleeding the refugee quarter, the crossing camps, the people who came off the boats with nothing. Protection money from stalls that can't make protection money. A cut of the relief bread. Debts called on people who have nothing to pay them with except the last thing they own." His voice did not change. It never did. That's Rule 2. The Wake doesn't profit from the desperate, and it doesn't let its affiliates do it either. There's no assessment for Rule 2. There's no warning. We confirmed it to the standard. The guild ends tonight. Rule 2. No crimes against those in need. Alana had written the rules into their current form herself, in the years after the architect died and left her this whole dark machine. 4 rules, 2 of them moral lines that did not bend, that had never bent, that could not be allowed to bend, because their whole power was that they did not. An affiliate who broke Rule 1 or Rule 2 did not get a hearing. They got the Undertow. The criminal world knew it, and the knowing was the thing that kept most of them honest, not the Undertow's blades, but the certainty of them. The certainty was the rule. Bend the certainty once and you had no rule at all, just a suggestion, and a suggestion would never have kept a single hungry child safe from the people who would otherwise have eaten them alive. She believed that the way other people believed in gods, she had built her life on it. And still, standing in the rain, she felt it again, the wrong note, the one she still could not name. 9 years clean, she said, and then 3 weeks of this. People don't usually turn that fast, warden. A guild that spends 9 years keeping the rules doesn't wake up one morning and start eating the poor. "Sometimes they do," the warden said. "Hard season, new mouths, greed finds everyone eventually." "Sometimes they do," Alana agreed. "And sometimes the report is wrong and we end a guild for a competitor who fed us a story. That's why we confirmed to the standard. That's why I came. Before we end 9 years tonight, I want to stand in that quarter and see it with my own eyes. Then we do it." The warden looked at her for a moment. "The rule doesn't need your eyes," he said. "It's already met the standard." "The rule doesn't need my eyes," Alana said. "I need my eyes. There's a difference, and tonight I'm going to insist on it. Take me to the quarter." The refugee quarter of Tarnside was the part of the port that the rest of the port had agreed not to see. It sat where the docks met the marsh, a tide-flooded sprawl of boats turned into houses and houses turned into boats, where the people who had come off the crossing with nothing built lives out of less. Alana walked it in her plain coat with the rain coming down and the undertow drifting unseen at the edges of her, and she made herself look at all of it, because looking was the thing she had insisted on, and she would not flinch from the thing she'd insisted on. She saw the Rule 2 violation within 100 steps. It was not subtle. A man with a guild mark on his collar stood over a woman at a fish stall, and the woman was pressing coins into his hand that she plainly could not spare, and her children were watching her do it, learning the lesson that the world takes from you, and you let it because the alternative is worse. The man took the coins and moved to the next stall and did it again. Alana felt the anger come up in her, old and cold and clean. This was real. This was the thing Rule 2 existed to stop. Whatever else was true tonight, this part was true. Someone in this quarter was eating the desperate, and the wake did not let that stand. "You see it," the warden murmured beside her. "It's real. It's exactly the report. Let me end it." "Wait," Alana said, because she was watching the woman at the fish stall, and the woman, after the man with the guild mark had gone, had not crumpled. She had wiped her face and walked 20 steps to a low-lit doorway, a doorway with a line of people outside it in the rain, and she had gone in and come out with a bowl of something hot, and Alana followed the line with her eyes to the sign over the door, and the sign was not a Wake sign. It was a soup kitchen, a small, poor, private one, not the Wake's, someone else's. "Whose is that?" Alana said. "The guild master's," the warden said, and for the first time there was the smallest hesitation in him. "The old one, Esme, she's run a feeding line out of the guild's own pocket for 15 years. It's in the file. It doesn't change the violation." "She takes the bread with one hand and gives it back with the other," Alana said slowly. "That's what you're telling me. The guild that's bleeding this quarter is also feeding it, at the same time, in the same rain." "People are complicated," the warden said. "The rule isn't." Alana watched the old woman in the doorway, because that was Esme, she understood now, the guildmaster herself ladling soup with her own hands at the end of a night, a stout grey woman with a tiredness in her face that Alana recognized because she had seen it in the ferry glass that morning, the tiredness of someone carrying a thing too heavy for one person. The people in the line knew Esme. They spoke to her. A child showed her something cupped in 2 hands, and Esme bent to look at it with her whole attention, the rain running off both of them, and laughed. People in a quarter do not laugh with the person who is eating them alive. "That woman is not preying on these people," Alana said. "Look at them. They're afraid of the man with the collar. They're not afraid of her. So either I'm about to end a guild for a thing its master would never order, or there's a master in that guild who isn't her. Warden, we're not ending anything tonight until I know which." "Alana," the warden's voice was very low, "this is the thing we don't do. We don't investigate a confirmed Rule 2. We don't sit in the dark second-guessing the standard while the violation goes on around us. The certainty is the rule. You taught me that." "I did teach you that," Alana said. "So here's the other half, and I should have taught it to you years ago because I'm only now learning I believe it. The certainty is the rule, but the certainty was always supposed to be earned. It was never supposed to be a thing I hide behind so I don't have to look. Tonight I'm looking. Find me the man with the collar, the one taking the coins. I want to know who he answers to." They took the man with the collar in an alley off the fish market, quietly, the way the Undertow took everyone, and Alana asked him 3 questions and watched his face answer them before his mouth did. "Who told you to blade the quarter?" The man's eyes went to a building up the hill, the guild house, and then away, fast, frightened of something that was not Alana. "Does Esme know?" And there it was again, that flick of fear and a small, ugly shake of the head, and Alana understood a great deal from it. The man was not afraid of his guildmaster. He was afraid of someone in his guildmaster's house, and it was not the grey woman ladling soup in the rain. "Who has Esme's house?" she asked him. "Who really has it?" "Riggin," the man whispered like the name cost him, "came in 3 weeks ago, off a boat from the Platinum Sea with men of his own and money behind him. Esme still wears the mark, but Riggin holds the strings. The coin we take off the quarter goes to him. And the other thing, the boats," he stopped. He was shaking now. "I didn't ask about the boats. You don't ask Riggin about the boats." What boats? Alana said, and felt the night change shape under her, the way a current changes under a hull. It took the Undertow an hour to find the boats. Because Riggin had hidden them the way a careful man hides the worst thing he does. And when Alana stood at the end of a flooded warehouse on the marsh edge and saw what was in them, the old cold anger in her went to something past anger, somewhere very quiet and very final. People in the boats were people. Refugees who had come off the crossing with nothing and been offered work, passage, a debt they could pay with labor, and the debt had teeth, and the labor had no end, and the contracts in Riggin's strongbox were written in the precise coercive language of a thing pretending to be employment, and the practical function of all of it was the buying and selling of human beings. Rule 1: no trade in people, the oldest line, the first one, the one the Wake had never in all its history let stand for a single day past discovery. He's running Rule 1 out of a Rule 2 guild, the warden said very quietly beside her, and even his still voice had something in it now. And he made sure the Rule 2 showed, the bleeding of the quarter, the collars, the coins, the visible thing. He wanted you to see it, Alana said. He wanted the report to change. He fed us the smaller crime so the Rule would do the larger one for him. She saw the whole shape of it then, all at once, and it was the most frightening thing she had seen in 10 years, more frightening than any blade, because it was a blade aimed at the thing she had built her life on. Riggin had taken Esme's guild and known exactly what he held, an affiliate of the verdant Wake, watched by the Undertow, governed by absolute rules. He could not run his boats forever under that watch, so he had turned the watch into a weapon. He had made the guild visibly break Rule 2, knowing the Undertow did not assess a Rule 2, knowing the certainty was the rule. The Undertow would come. The Undertow would confirm the visible violation to the standard. And the Undertow would end the guild, Esme, the honest core, everyone who might ever have told the Wake about the boats, cleanly, defensibly, in a single night, leaving Riggin to walk out of the wreckage with his men and his money and his cargo, into a Wake that believed it had just done justice. Alana had been one decision away from doing it. If she had stayed on the ferry, if she had let the certainty do its work, the way the rule said, the way she had told the warden was the rule. She had come within an hour of murdering the only people who could have stopped a slaver, because a slaver understood her rule better than she had let herself understand it. The rule almost killed the people it's for, she said. That's what he built. He built a machine out of my own certainty and pointed it at the hungry, and I almost pulled it for him. They went to find Esme and Riggin, and the night should have gotten simpler then. It got worse. Riggin ran when the Undertow moved on the guild house. A careful man keeps a careful door, and the marsh erupted into the ugly close work of men with blades in flooded lanes, and Alana lost sight of the simple resolution she'd been reaching for. But she found Esme. The old woman was in the guild house's lower room, not running, sitting at her own table with her hands flat on the wood, waiting, like a person who had known for 3 weeks that this night was coming, and had decided how she would meet it. "You're the Wake," Esme said. "The real Wake they sent you yourself." She looked at Alana's plain coat and tired face and nodded slowly, as if confirming something. "Good. I'm glad it's a person and not just the blade. I have things to say and I'd rather say them to a person." "I know about Riggin," Alana said. "The boats, the contracts, I know he took your house. I know the Rule 2 was his to make us end you. I'm not here to end you, Esme. I'm here to end him. You're not the violation, you're the frame." And Esme, who should have wept with relief, who should have thanked whatever she believed in, closed her eyes, and the look that crossed her face was not relief. It was grief. It was the particular grief of a person hearing themselves forgiven for the wrong thing. "Oh, child," Esme said softly, "you've only found half of it. Sit down. Let me give you the other half, because you came all this way to look with your own eyes, and you ought to see the whole thing before you decide you can save me." Alana sat. Some cold instinct told her to sit. "Riggin came 3 weeks ago," Esme said. "Men money, the boats, he didn't ask for my house. He took it and he showed me why I wouldn't fight him. He had names. My people, the families on my feeding line, the children. He told me what would happen to them if I went to the Wake, and I believed him because I'd seen the boats and I knew exactly what kind of man fills boats like that. So I didn't go to you. That's my first sin and I'll own it. I was afraid for my people and I stayed quiet about a slaver. You can judge me for that and you'd be right." "Fear isn't a violation," Alana said. "Staying alive isn't." Let me finish, Esme said, gently, the way you'd quiet a child. Because that's not the part you have to judge. Here's the part you have to judge. Riggin bled the quarter to make the rule 2 show. You've worked that out. But he was clever, your Riggin. He didn't bleed it with his own men only. He made me do some of it. He told me that if the takings from the quarter didn't come in heavy enough to look like a real violation, he'd start on the families. So I sent my own people out with collars. I took coins off the fish stalls. I called debts on women who came off the boats with nothing. I, Esme, who has fed this quarter for 15 years with my own hands, I preyed on the people in my own soup line for 3 weeks to keep a slaver from doing worse. And I told myself it was the lesser evil. And maybe it was, but the coins were real, child. The hunger I made was real. I broke your rule too, not Riggin's collar on my man, my hand. Mine. The room was very quiet. Out in the marsh, distantly, the Undertow was running Riggin's men to ground. Alana sat with her hands flat on Esme's table and felt the whole night close on her like a fist, because she understood with terrible clarity what the old woman had just done. Esme had not confessed to be punished. Esme had confessed because Esme knew the rule, had known it for 9 years as an honest affiliate, and Esme would not let Alana save her on a false understanding. You could have not told me, Alana said. Her voice was not quite steady. I was going to walk out of here and call you the victim. You could have let me. I know, Esme said. That's why I had to tell you. A rule you can lie your way around isn't protecting anybody. You know that better than I do. You built it that way on purpose. I'm not going to be the lie that breaks it. And there it was, the thing Alana had spent the whole night refusing to see coming. Rule 2 had no assessment, no case by case, no sympathetic exception. By design, her design, because the instant a sympathetic reason became a defense, every predator in the world would arrive with a sympathetic reason, and the rule that kept a hungry child safe would become a thing that bent for whoever told the saddest story, which meant it would protect no one at all. Esme had a reason. Esme had the most sympathetic reason Alana had ever heard. A coerced woman choosing the lesser evil to shield her people from a slaver. And it did not matter. It could not be allowed to matter. The coins were real. The hunger was real. The line was the line, or it was nothing. Alana had come to Tarnside, believing the hardest thing she'd do tonight was refuse to enforce a rule on the wrong people. She had been wrong. The hardest thing was going to be enforcing it on exactly the right one, and hating it with her whole heart, and doing it anyway. She dealt with Riggin first, because the part of her that could still feel clean anger needed somewhere to put it, and because a slaver was the one thing in this whole grey night that her judgment had no trouble at all condemning. They ran him down at the marsh edge at his boats, where he'd gone to try to move the cargo before the wake could free it. Alana came to the end of the flooded lane herself, on foot, in the rain, while the Undertow held his men, and Riggin turned with a blade in his hand, and that particular confidence of a man who had read his enemy correctly and expected the reading to save him. You're the wake, Riggin said, smiling, breathing hard. The real one. Good. Then you've worked out by now that ending me ends nothing. The contracts are filed, the buyers are waiting, my partners hold the names. Kill me and you've still got a guild that broke your rule 2 sitting up the hill, and your own rule says what your rule says. You can't help the old woman. You can't touch my partners without a war. The cleanest night you can still have is the one I built for you. End the guild, take the credit, and let me. You misunderstood the rule, Alana said. She had not raised her voice. She walked toward him through the flooded lane, unhurried, and Riggin set himself to cut her down, because he was a man who lived by the blade, and she was a woman in a plain coat who did not appear to be holding one. You thought the rule was a machine, Alana said. You thought if you fed it the right crime it would run on its own and you'd never have to face a person. That's the mistake. The rule was never a machine, Riggin. It was always a person. It was always me, and the person has come herself. He lunged. He was fast and he was good and he had a blade and she did not. And for half a heartbeat it looked like the simple arithmetic he'd staked his life on. And then Alana did the thing that the criminal world found most unsettling about her, the thing the architect had appointed her for, which was not strength and was not speed, but was simply that she was always a step further into the situation than the person across from her. She had not come down a flooded lane toward an armed slaver unarmed. She had come with the Undertow already behind him in the water, where she'd put them while he was busy reading her, and the blow he set to land on her never landed, because the warden took him from behind, and the lane closed around Riggin the way the marsh closes around everything in this drowned world, slow and without mercy and final. Alana stood over him at the end and did not look away from it. A slaver. Rule 1. The one line her judgment carried without weight, the one consequence she would never lose a night's sleep over. She made sure of it herself, and then she turned her back on him and walked up out of the marsh toward the hard thing, the real thing, the thing she would lose every night's sleep over for the rest of her life. Esme was where she'd left her, hands flat on the table, waiting. "Riggin's done," Alana said. "The boats are open. The people in them are free. My people are cutting the contracts now. Everyone and the families he threatened are under the Wake's hand as of tonight, which means nothing in this world will touch them. The guild lives. Your honest people keep their livelihoods under new terms. I judged all of that myself, not the rule, me." "And me," Esme said. It was not a question. Alana sat down across from her, because she would not say this standing over her like a magistrate. She said it as one tired woman to another, which was the only way she could bear to say it at all. "And you," Alana said, "I've spent the whole night learning I can't hide behind the rule that every consequence tonight is mine, the mercy and the killing both, that the line was always my judgment and never the rule's. And the worst thing I learned, Esme, is that my judgment agrees with the rule about you, not because you're a monster. You're the opposite of a monster, but the coins were real. The hunger you made was real. And if I let the most sympathetic woman I've ever met walk free of Rule 2 because her reason broke my heart, then tomorrow the rule is just a thing that bends for a good enough story, and the next Riggin brings a story, and a year from now there's no rule left to protect a single person in a single soup line anywhere in the world. I can save the guild from a lie. I can't save you from the truth. If I bend the line for you, it stops being a line, and then it stops being a shield, and then all of this, the kitchens, the rules, the whole reason I do any of it is gone, and you of all people would not want to be the reason it's gone." Esme nodded slowly. The grief in her face had gone very still and very calm, the calm of a person who had reached the end of a thing they had seen coming for 3 weeks and made their peace with. "No," Esme said, "I wouldn't, that's why I told you." She was quiet a moment. "Will you do it yourself, not the blade? I'd rather it was the person who understood why than someone who's just following the rule. You came all this way to look with your own eyes. Look at me while you do it. That's all I'll ask. Don't let it be a thing that happens in the dark to a stranger." "Yes," Alana said, her throat was tight. "I'll do it myself, I won't look away." "Good," Esme said, and reached across her own table and put one of her soup-line hands over Alana's for a moment, the way she'd bent to look at the child's cupped hands in the rain, with her whole attention. "You're a good one. The architect chose right. Feed them for me after. The line outside, don't let it stop because of tonight. Promise me the bread keeps coming." "It keeps coming," Alana said. "I promise you the bread keeps coming." And then she did the hardest thing she had ever done in the small lit room with her own hand, looking the whole time because she had promised, and because the only thing worse than carrying it would have been pretending she hadn't done it. It was quick. It was as merciful as the unmerciful thing could be made, and Alana did not let herself look away from a single second of it, because a woman who could not bear to watch her own justice had no business calling it justice at all. The rain had stopped by the time Alana came back down to the waterline, and the grey light of morning was coming up over the port, and the line outside the soup kitchen had formed again, because hunger does not observe a night of justice. She stood and watched the line for a while. Someone had taken Esme's ladle, one of the honest guild people, a younger woman, already standing in the steam handing out bowls because the bread kept coming, because Alana had promised it would, and because a thing built right outlives the hands that built it. That was the whole of what the kitchens were. That was the whole of what Alana had ever wanted the Wake to be, underneath all the dark machinery. The bread keeps coming. It had cost a good woman's life to keep it true. Alana made herself hold that. She did not soften it. The warden came and stood beside her the way he did, saying nothing for a while. Then, "You could have stayed on the ferry," he said. "The rule would have ended the guild. It would have been confirmed to the standard, defensible to the whole network, clean, and you'd never have known about Riggin or the boats or what Esme really did. You'd have slept fine for the rest of your life." "I know," Alana said. "So was it worth it?" the warden said. It was, she understood, a real question, perhaps the realest he had ever asked her. "You saved a slaver's victims and a guild of honest people, And it cost you the one person in this whole port you'd have done anything to save, and it cost you the comfort of ever again letting the rule decide instead of you. From here on, every consequence the Undertow brings is yours, personally. You felt that tonight. That's a weight, Alana. The old way, the rule decides, the certainty does the work, that weight didn't land on a person. Now it lands on you, every time. Forever, was it worth it? Alana watched the steam rise off the bowls in the morning light and thought about it honestly, because the warden deserved an honest answer, and so did she. For 10 years I thought the certainty was the rule, she said. That's what I told you, that's what I told myself, and I was right, but I was hiding inside it. As long as the rule decided, I never had to be the one who killed a good woman to keep a hungry child safe. The rule did it, the certainty did it, my hands stayed clean. That was the comfort. And a slaver looked at that comfort and saw a weapon, because a person hiding behind a rule will pull any lever you build for them. She shook her head slowly. So no, I don't get to hide anymore. The line is the line, and the line is me, and from now on I have to stand in every room where it falls and look at the person it falls on and own that I'm the one who chose it. The mercy I gave the guild was mine. Riggin was mine. Esme was mine. All of it. That's the weight, and you're right that it's terrible, and I'm going to carry it for the rest of my life. That's not an answer to was it worth it, the warden said. Yes it is, Alana said. A rule I can hide behind protects me. A rule I have to carry protects them. She nodded at the line, at the steam, at the woman with Esme's ladle and the people coming up out of the dark to eat. Esme told me that, right before the end. A rule you can lie your way around isn't protecting anybody. She was teaching me my own job with the last breath she had. The least I can do is learn it. So yes, it was worth it. It will be worth it every time it costs me everything, because the day it stops costing me is the day it stopped being real. She pulled her plain coat closed against the morning and went down to the water, the most powerful woman in the surviving world's dark trade, who had come to a port in the rain to end a guild, and had instead ended a slaver and a good woman, and the last comfortable lie she'd been telling herself for 10 years. She stopped at the kitchen on her way to the ferry. Nobody knew her. She took a turn at the ladle, the way Esme would have, and served the line in the steam until the pot was low, and no one in it ever knew that the tired woman handing out their bread had killed to make sure it kept coming, or that she would do it again, and own it again, every time for the rest of her life. The bread kept coming, that was the rule. That had always, underneath everything, been the only rule that mattered, and it belonged to her now, all of it, the feeding and the cost both, with nowhere left to hide.